What's going on, guys? I'm Shane and welcome to Spare Change. If you've got a passion for audio and video gear or want to keep up with the latest and highest quality movies at home, like 4K Blu-rays, consider becoming a subscriber for new weekly content. In for a review today, we have First Man on 4K Blu-ray. I won't be reviewing the movie, I'm just going to share with you some of my thoughts on the video and audio quality. Now for a few tech specs. The movie was shot on 16 and 35mm film and IMAX. It's got a 2K DI, it's rated PG-13. Runtime is 141 minutes. Aspect ratio is 239:1 and 190:1 for that one IMAX scene. So yes, the aspect ratio will switch. Alright, so there's a specific visual aesthetic to this film. It was shot on 16 and 35mm, so there's of course film grain throughout. The grain texture does vary between heavy and highly refined, so if you're a grain hater, you'll probably hate the look. Now this movie does have that vintage feel to it, which does make sense because it does take place in the 60s, and I think the film grain adds to the experience. I found details were nicely resolved here with sweeping landscape shots and some exterior shots displaying a noticeable bump in resolution over the 1080p disc. Things like grass, clouds, even carpet were cleaner and more discerning. There's of course finer detail in many of the facial close-ups, and material textures like stitching or nylon on costumes were rendered nicely as well. Again, this isn't a 4K razor sharp presentation, so don't go into this thinking it's gonna be. HDR usage here brought a more richer, deeper color palette over the standard Blu-ray's offering. The film uses sepia tones to create a warm visual feel, with primary colors being more vibrant and vivid. Spectral highlights from various light fixtures and sunlight were extremely bright and bold, almost to the point where they seemed a little too hot, yet there was still some highlight detail intact. Black levels went deep and gave the image some excellent contrasting depth, though there were times blacks did seem to crush detail, noticeable in the cockpit in Chapter 8. I never found it took away from the visual enjoyment, but I did take note of it. There's also some brief shots where there's some debris on the lower part of the screen that was likely left on the lens during filming.
Seemed to be a tad short.
Audio was done in Dolby Atmos, and I thought it was a decent mix. Atmos height effects I found were used sparingly, with Chapter 1 being one of the main highlights. Wind moves throughout the room, while the feeling of being inside the cockpit was a nice audible treat. Chapter 7's walk to the Gemini had some cool effects as the lights rattled overhead, and off in the far distance, you could faintly hear the other rocket take off. The mix has a very realistic soundstage that ranges from loud and bombastic to dead silence. It's a nice contrast and brings some great tension to the film. Bass response here was definitely hard and tactile, but I did feel it should have went a lot lower, especially when the rockets were taking off or landing. I was expecting some interstellar type of low end, but it fell short. Now this is mostly a dialogue heavy film, so center channel clarity was never an issue. So for audio, I'm gonna go with an 8. Atmos height effects were really only present during the dramatic moments, and I did want a lot more kick in the low end. There's good atmospherics here and there, and the musical score was very detailed and extremely wide up front. For video, I'm gonna go with an 8.9. Like I mentioned before, if you're a grain hater, you may want to steer clear. I found this to have a very cinematic, filmic look, especially playback on my larger screen. There's tons of details and tons of soft parts. HDR looked amazing in those sweeping shots, and I didn't even mention the IMAX part. If you want 4K crispiness, Chapter 18 delivers. And yes, it does go full screen. So should you grab this on 4K Blu-ray? If you enjoy great visuals, then I'd say yes. If you hate slow burn movies, then maybe not. Now, if you guys are interested in grabbing this disc, I'll leave some links down below in the description. Leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts on First Man on 4K Blu-ray. Follow us on social media, and if you want to get special updates and monthly giveaways, then stop by our Patreon page. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll see you guys again in the next video.